Hey everybody, it's Jimmy Valentine with another review for you. It's Daredevil 597, and you may have seen one of my previous reviews on this channel. I'm a huge Daredevil fan. Really, what turned me on to the character was the Netflix series, and I've really enjoyed some of the most recent story arcs. I read the Supreme story arc a few weeks ago, courtesy to the New York Public Library, which had Matt Murdock arguing for superheroes being able to testify in court without having to reveal their secret identities because they're essentially act as law enforcement in New York. And I did a review on this channel of the first part of Mayor Fisk storyline, which I thought was a good, sizable comic, which would be worth your $4 investment. I did not review 596 because I didn't think it was worth the purchase, to be honest. It was a good, it felt like a good intro to an episode of Daredevil, or like a good A plot. Like you'd have this part of Daredevil running around and trying to escape the police. But it really felt like it needed a B plot, whether it would be with Foggy or Karen or his ADA or even Fisk. It really felt like it needed something to anchor the story. Like it could have had the chase sequence and then maybe added like 3 or 4 pages through the issue, just either people reacting to the chase or adding to the Mayor Fisk story arc. This issue is pretty good, but it has a fatal flaw. Now, in my personal life, I work with people with disabilities, and it's something I find very rewarding and very fulfilling. And for me, I know a little bit more about disabled culture than most people, and Daredevil is somebody who kind of walks between two worlds, where he's a character who, his disability is more of a mask for him to be able to do his vigilantism and not be suspected by the public. He's not someone who grew up in disabled culture. Even though he was raised partially by Stick for most iterations of the character, Stick was able to fine tune his other senses to the point that his blindness was not a hindrance to his life or a limitation on his life. And Daredevil doesn't have any blind friends. He didn't go to a school for the blind. He never did any kind of orientations with other blind people. Doesn't really associate with other disabled people. And, it's something I would like to see introduced into these comics. I think it could add a bit of scope and richness that the character lacks occasionally. The story itself is pretty good on some aspects. We have the part where we see that the Kingpin has introduced Matt Murdock as his deputy mayor. We have some of the other heroes kind of reacting to it or not reacting to it. We see that Fisk has tried to hinder Matt by giving him a person that's supposed to read the legal documents. Now, again, as I said, as someone who works with people with disabilities, you would know that technology has advanced tremendously since the beginning of the 2000s, and a lot of technology is very portable and very affordable. There are scanners that a person can have that are basically the size of a Palm Pilot or the size of a set of pencils that can scan a document and read it to a person. Now, for legal documents, it may be a bit tricky because those technologies are not perfect. And if you're a lawyer, you want to make sure that you understand every single word and that every word is correct. But Matt would have something like this, or he would have, there's a lot of laptops that can take a picture of a document and convert it into audio for a person or do other functions for people with disabilities. So while this story idea might have worked in the 1980s and even up to the 1990s, it's not something that's the reality of someone with a disability. And Matt, as a city employee working as an ADA, they would have given him something like this as a reasonable accommodation, even though lawyers have paralegals that help prep them for their cases, and that's very typical. Matt would at least have some of the foresight to request some instruments that would help him, or at least give the illusion of helping him. one of Daredevil's abilities is he's supposed to be able to be able to read the ink off a newspaper, or read any kind of printing on a piece of paper. Also, his sonar is supposed to give kind of outer images, but I feel like he should have something like this, and then it could show at least Fisk not being prepared for Matt having this tool in his arsenal, and at least there'd be a little bit more tension because Fisk didn't prepare for this. Matt's ready for it, and it could have worked a little sharper. I brought this to the attention to the writer. The writer was a bit irked, to be honest, and I can respect, it's your art. You worked hard on it, but it really threw me out of the story that he didn't have this technology. And I understand Matt Murdock's supposed to be 35 years old, so he might not have grown up with this stuff. But at some point, having worked as a lawyer, or even going for his master's or going for his bar exam, someone would have said, "Hey, there's this tech. Do you need us to provide it for you as an accommodation?" And he would have taken it just to have it, even if he doesn't really need it, at least to give the appearance of somebody with a disability. Matt kind of straddles this two worlds of he is somewhat disabled. There are people with low vision and limited vision. Blindness and hearing is on a scale, which a lot of people don't really realize if they don't interact with people with disabilities. Someone can be blind to not be able to drive, but able to kind of see enough to be able to navigate in the world. I had a friend in college who was blind since the age of 13. One of the things he explained to me was because he went blind because of an accident, and it was at puberty, like he was able to adapt at a level that he doesn't think if he had became blind older, or if he was born blind, that would be different than someone else. Like he told me he was able to perceive the sound of air opening through a door to be able to navigate in a space, and I've seen him do it. And there's the way a disability affects is person to person, especially with hearing and sight. And Matt Murdock technically is disabled even with his superpowers because he cannot see finite details on things with his sonar or his radar sense. And I feel like sometimes a writer who's at least worked with the disabled may know this, or even a disabled person would be able to add a bit more nuance. I also was a bit disappointed, to be honest, by Fisk acknowledging to his henchmen that he only has Matt Murdock there for the optics, and it would have been a more interesting story arc. And this is something I've also kind of brought this up in my White Knight reviews. The Joker turned the henchmen into zombies and the other villains into zombies to kind of wreck the city so that he can kind of show how bad Batman is instead of waiting for an opportunity and seizing it. And Fisk trying to immobilize Matt Murdock so that he can't use himself against the Kingpin really invalidates the larger point of this story arc, which is supposed to be, Fisk is the mayor, and Fisk genuinely cares for the city, even though he goes about it through criminal means or ill-gotten means. So we have that first part of the story. Then we have some genuine, very good action sequences, and I want you guys to kind of pay attention and follow the panels a little bit. So we have an actual good sequence of events where Daredevil tries to stop a robbery, and the convenience store clerk wants to collect the cash prize that's out on him from the last issue. So he's a bit in trouble. He's interacting with an Inhuman that I haven't seen before, who informs him that a villain that I'm not really aware of is going to go after him. And we see this last image, which is a pretty nice stark image to end the book. So I would say this. I'm very into supporting monthly issues of comics. It's something I've been having conversations with on Facebook and Twitter and other forums. Comic books as a medium will not survive just in trade paperback. These individual issues are kind of the lifeblood of the industry and the primary means of support for comic book shops and for creators themselves. While trade paperbacks have a longer shelf life, and are considered a better quality for the reader, it's important to find an individual comic that you think is worthy of your own personal investment. While comics will never retain the high value that we saw in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, I do think it's a fun hobby to have, and I've enjoyed the online community aspect and even the interpersonal aspect of interacting with other comic book readers. But I would give this a 3 out of 5. I would say the first issue was a solid 5 out of 5. The second issue was like a 4 out of 5, and this is a 3 out of 5. If the next issue, there's a few more till the big 600 issue, which I'm kind of excited to see where they'll go with it. I'm hoping it'll be a double issue. But right now it's a little shaky. But that in my Mr. Miracle reviews, the first issues of Mr. Miracle were kind of shaky, and I thought the last 3 issues were spectacular. So I'm going to give this issue a benefit of a doubt. I'm going to be this video is going to have a screenshot of my interaction with the creator, which I'm hoping it doesn't take too harshly. I have enjoyed this run, and I'm looking forward to reading more. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, I'd really appreciate if you guys reach out. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing another comic book review probably Monday or Tuesday of this week. And I'm also going to be going to the store and trying to pick up some more stuff to review for you guys. So you take care. Peace.